G'day, g'day. Kind of still getting things set up here. I'm sure all of you guys are like always like on top of your stuff and got everything up to and touching. Not me. Always, not always. I love to be on top of my stuff, but sometimes it just run right up. You know what I mean? Guys, happy Saturday. Happy weekend. Wait for the pTGC, the Gray's Yoda to jump in. I think he's live. Start listening. Space is ending. He's going to drop another one in. Yeah, the spaces aren't working. They're not working for whatever reason. Not sure why. Okay. So just hang tight, guys. PulseTGC. Let's see. I play the recording. Yeah, funny. Okay, Grace. PulseTGC. Got to do a search. Come on, baby. Pulse. He's making another one. He will. Oh, he'll drop it in the chat. It's kind of a bummer that is not working. I'm not sure what the deal is, guys. I got the monthly data together, guys, so we'll talk about that. Oh, got to be in the correct group here. Hold up. I don't know if you guys have ever streamed and been under pressure. You kind of fall apart. Everything just falls apart. How's everyone doing? Morning, Karen. I haven't seen you in here before. Free X band. YouTube is greater than spaces. I would have to agree with you on that. Let's see if somebody just messaged me. The main account literally kicked me off. Yeah. Just chilling. So, yeah, guys. Not sure what went on there. Let's see. He'll drop it in the main chat and then we'll get cooking. We'll get cooking. Free X band. YouTube is great in the spaces. Well, I mean, you get visuals, which can be good. They can be a distraction also from, I know they're a stinking distraction. They aren't extraction. They extract my attention from the conversation. I miss so much. Guys, I re-listened to these spaces, almost all of them, and I'm like, how did I miss that? Because I'm here in front of my distraction zone. That's how. So, yeah, I'd have to agree with that the YouTube is probably better because you can type. You can't do the audio thing, which is one day somebody's going to come up with something better. Some platform where people can come up and talk and type and all that happy good stuff. And it's either going to be YouTube or Good morning, Stylus. YouTube or X, I wouldn't put it beyond X to come up with something super innovative. Okay, I have a link. Yeah, man. Start listening, request. Yay. People are jumping in. Is there anything I need to share, like screen-wise? Where is my... Huh. Well, we closed 5 days in the green. I'm pretty sure. I'm just kind of verifying. For UFO, yeah, yesterday. We closed the 5th day in a row in green, which is great. Good morning.
Good morning, Banana. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Good. Yeah,
So,
for some reason, Twitter just keeps, when I try to open the spaces, it keeps like kicking me out of the whole account. And then I have to re-sign back in. It shuts down the spaces. Kind of weird, huh?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about that, and I'm trying to think how we can mitigate that. Let's see.
Yeah, I don't really know. It's not that big a deal. I just have to open, the space that you set up. The kind of bummer of that is, people are waiting for it and they set the reminder.
Yep.
And right when I hit open, it just instantly shuts it down and boots me from the account. So then, I just sign back into the account, but then I have to create a new spaces so the people who have been waiting on it maybe think that it didn't happen,
Yeah. Well, let me query the audience. If anybody has an idea for a workaround, I set it up in the main account and then just kind of set it and forget it until Saturday morning and Monday night. And I don't know if there's anything that we can do to mitigate that hassle. Please let us know. It's escaping me. I can't think of anything.
Yeah, it might be because we're both using it, and maybe Twitter is like saying, oh, multiple people are using this account. Let's kick them and see who really owns it or whatever. But then we just both log back in and it like is on repeat. It might be like something Twitter's trying to do.
I wonder if you might try setting it up for Monday and see if that works or something. We'll figure it out later. Yeah. But how are you doing? Cool. Nice. We have some new faces in the YouTube. We got a Karen Clark, a free X band. Stylus is here as usual, and TS Pedro, and who knows who else that I can't see.
Yeah, awesome. For anyone new, if you're watching on Banana's end, feel free to comment any questions you have, and he'll actually bring up your questions and read them out loud to us so we can answer on the spaces and for you guys on YouTube. And if you are new and you don't mind coming up to the speaker board and you have questions, you can also hop in the spaces and ask your questions live as well. But a lot of people don't like coming up to spaces, so if you do have questions, feel free to find Banana's YouTube, and maybe Banana can say his YouTube out loud, but you can ask the questions in the comment section of his YouTube as well.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. It's at the Prairie Banana. So yeah, some people like to type, some people like to talk. I was commenting at some point somebody's gonna or we are gonna have access to a platform where we can do everything. A lot more. We'll have a lot more options of interacting, I think, at some point.
Yeah, I think because there's like a comment sections for the spaces, but I think it would be better if they reworded it to or redesigned it to where it was more interactive, right? Like where it was like constantly flowing on like the screen of the people who are in the spaces.
Yes. Yep.
I'll hit up Elon and let him know what we think.
Okay. Sounds good, man. So we closed 5 days in the green. You know?
Yeah, that's nice. I like it because it's kind of rounding off a little bit slow, so it really feels like it's creating like a good sustainable bottom. And that's not with like any DAO DAO injections or anything like that. That's just naturally what the market seems to be deciding what a good floor would be around that 10 range, which is cool.
Yeah. You said 10 range though? Oh, 10
PLS to 1 pTGC.
Okay. We'd have to come up from where we are now. We'd have to come up a little over 9% to close the day in the green. So, yeah, I think we're just waiting on the broader markets. You know, Bitcoin is at 83,000. Ethereum is at 1,800. None of those are looking very juicy. They're just not moving. So they're just not moving. And
I think I saw yesterday that like the S&P 500 and some of the main stocks, those all closed red, but crypto actually closed green, and people were saying that's pretty bullish for crypto, that we're now kind of moving in a different direction than the stock market right now.
Yeah.
To verify it, though, I just saw people posting about it, some bigger channels.
Well, that M2 global money supply is supposed to be catching up with this, you know, I believe toward the end of April, you know, according to, what's that gentleman's name? That Bitcoin guy, Colin Talks Crypto. That's been a topic of conversation, that M2 money supply that he, I don't know if he discovered it, but if you look at the chart of the M2 money supply and then it's offset, they offset it by a number of days, by like 105 days. But that M2 money supply has been, increasing. It's a pretty, I laid eyes on it yesterday and it looked really good. What it would potentially do for us, and has, I guess, historically done for us, has been very positive. So I'm like, wow, that's something to look forward to. That's worth hodling for. What else? What other noteworthy stuff is there, Zen?
I think the tariff news more recently, it wasn't yesterday or anything, it was a couple days ago, but Trump let out more information on the tariffs, which obviously created somewhat of a downturn on the markets. I think Bitcoin was actually running up pretty good until that exact moment, which is nice in a way, right? That meant Bitcoin was pushing upwards until just news came out that kind of struck a little bit of fear. So hopefully that fear dwindles away and the markets start pushing upwards again. I do think the tariff part, like some good, and this is just my opinion, so take it with a grain of salt. I do think it's turning into cracking a couple eggs to make an omelet. It seems like a lot of countries have came to the decision to drop the tariffs that they have on us, for us to drop the tariffs that Trump's trying to put on them. So it would be like, so it's, to me, it seems to be working. You know, it is in a way not fair that we have tariffs going into them, but they're not having an equal tariff going into us. You know, it comes a time where the U.S. government kind of needs to start looking out for ourselves and realize we can't fund the whole entire country when our country's economy isn't doing that great. And I do think Trump understands that the U.S. is in a way a business, and he is a good businessman. And I think he will take care of us that way. I think he cares about it. You know, even though he's getting older, he's got sons, he's got grandchildren that he wants to create a good, thriving U.S. economy and country for. So I do think that his overall plan is for the good, but I think it's just shaking some things up right now, right? And then we're just along for the ride of the shakeup and got to plan accordingly.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's gonna be a fun year. It already has been. I mean, listen, that PDI thing happened like maybe let's just call it 2 weeks ago. I think it was about 2 weeks ago. You know this week actually was really quiet, and comparatively, it was pretty quiet. So, but the whole year has been a very exciting time on PulseChain. So I'm like, okay, what's gonna happen this week? Who knows? It won't be the SEC thing probably, because that news is supposed to come out on the 21st of April, which is a couple weeks from now. Today's the 5th. So we got a little over 2 weeks for that, but anything could happen between now and then.
Yeah, I think as of right now, what's happening with that is a group of devs are in contact or at least getting approval with the PulseChain devs. I don't know the exact details, but they have contacted them and asked for approval to try to do this, is to create a spell. And the spell would, I believe, change some of the factors within MakerDAO that are making it so this user can mint PDI. That's not like minting out of inflation, but minting out of volts, etc. It would make it to where it would take more collateral to access that value, and it would update the oracles to make it to where it actually functions correctly. So there is actually a group of people working on fixing PDI to an extent. I don't know if this fixes everything or whatever, but I think their overall goal for the good of PulseChain is to make it to where the extractor can't just extract tons of value without putting tons of value in. So, you know, for PulseChain, I think that would be best case scenario, even though it's maybe not, this extreme mystery of some random person that people like to speculate on. It's devs that we know and that have been in contact with the PulseChain team and seem like they have good intentions to just fix, what the value is being extracting, since it doesn't seem like some people are willing to give up on the narrative. So they're at least trying to cast a spell to fix some of the broken parallels with the code that's creating this problem. And who knows if that will actually be a solution, but it's nice to see devs that are known here on PulseChain, like trying to come up with solutions for the greater good of PulseChain.
Yeah.
I don't know much on it. I hope that's the right decision. And, I'm sure that behind closed doors, they're having actually deep conversations. I would hope they're having deep conversations on the issue. I think this should be put on the top of the desk, over all other things being worked on, to see if or how the best way to go about, what's going on here.
Yes. Yeah. My understanding is that there's at least one team of guys working on the PDI thing. I mean, aside from just people chatting about it, in the communities, just talking about it, there are, from what I've gathered, like people collaborating, trying to, fix it or whatever they're up to.
Yeah, I think the main thing that I think they have the solution. The problem I think at hand right now is you need a certain amount of P maker to cast the spell to change the operation to what they want, and it's not verified like 100% that they can get that much P maker. Because the maker token is you need a certain amount of maker tokens to interact with the DAO, right?
Yep. Because the maker tokens are the keys.
Yeah, the voting rights to the system. So that's what I've kind of picked up on, just kind of a bystander watching from the side, seeing how it unfolds.
Yeah, that's how I am. I'm a bystander too, just watching it. It's an interesting unfolding. So, yeah.
So as far as PulseChain goes, I don't know if anything else too interesting that's happened in the last week. We're definitely still at the lows, which is nice. We talked about this on Monday. It makes it actually very simple for the X multiplier. I think we're still like a 10X away from previous all-time highs, which were like roughly a year ago. So X multiplier ideas, 10X, this is the best example I like to think of is since August, we're about 11X up, right? And could you imagine if we were able to do another 11X? So this is what we've done since August. If we did another 11X and if PulseChain just went to its previous all-time highs, what it was last year, well, that's 110X for the pTGC and UFO ecosystem.
Wow. Who would turn up a nose at that?
Yeah, and I think to our liquidity web at that point, it would probably, it's hard to tell, because we would for sure be up 10X in liquidity from the 10X on PulseChain, like if PulseChain did a 10X, but then as our price goes up, your liquidity increases as well because value is entering into the token, LP, and which appreciates the value. I think it mathematically is like every time your price does a 2x or like a 4x, your liquidity 2x's when you're going up against the blockchain, not the blockchain rising you up. So I think that could be roughly like if we did 110x, it could be roughly like a 50 or 40x to our liquidity web as well.
Whoa.
Which would be super, super juicy. It'd be awesome to see that much value in that web, that much value having to be traded by the market makers to fix the prices between our pairs. And obviously that fixing would add to our buy and burns, would add to LP ads, add to APY for stakers, holders, lockers, etc.
I mean, our current liquidity in pTGC right now is 4.5 million. You take and multiply that times 40, and that'd be 180 million. Yeah, man. That'd get more people's attention.
Yeah.
And
so that's one thing that happened this week that's interesting.
What was that?
pTGC passed 12% of supply bought and burn.
Yes. Yeah, that was a milestone. Where are we at right now? Let's see. Hold on a second. We are at burned supply. 12. We're at 12.01 right now. So actually, since we crossed 12%, we've already burned in just a few days since we hit that 12%. We've already burned 38 million pTGC, which is how many dollars worth of pTGC have been burnt at this price level? Let me look that up. 38. We burned $10,000 worth of pTGC in those few days. Wow. That's a big deal. I've got some monthly data that we can have a look at. Because
that sounds good. I just want to bring up real quick too that UFO is still very close to breaking over the 8% of supply bought and burnt. It's
okay.
7.98%. So, hopefully some volume picks up on UFO in these next couple days. Hopefully some movement in between the web or some human interaction, and we cross over that 8% bought and burnt supply there as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's go over some of that monthly data. If anyone has any questions or comments, feel free to come up, raise your hand, I'll bring you up, and we can interrupt what we're talking about and talk about whatever you wanted to, or answer the question. If you have a question, don't want to come up, feel free to ask it in Bananas chat on YouTube as well.
Yeah. Please, we'd like to have a conversation with anybody that's willing to talk about pTGC and UFO. What's nice about other people coming up and talking is it's a different person. You get a different personality, different perspective, and it just livens things up. So yeah, let's go over some monthly data. So the viewers on YouTube can see all of this, and I will try to narrate. The Ethereum total volume for the month of March, it was down relative to February, which was down relative to January. So it was actually, I got to add some zeros. It was $45 million in volume total, and then $61 million in February, 73 in January, January was the highest on record so far since I've been keeping record since August. August was 18 million, to give you guys some comparison. PulseChain.
So you know what's kind of interesting about that I think, Banana?
Tell me.
Is when the volume was the highest on Ethereum, it was actually the highest for the pTGC ecosystem. And we are a volume and volatility-based protocol, and we aren't actually directly correlated with Ethereum, but due to everything in markets being connected, I do think that there is a reason why you'll see the highest prices with pTGC on the same exact month that you're seeing higher, more of the higher volume days of Ethereum.
Okay.
There's a correlation there. You can even see this correlation with, if you look at on GoPulse, I believe it is, you can look at the liquidity of the chain, the volume of the chain, and I think it's total value locked on chain.
Mm-hmm.
And the price of pTGC and UFO are actually very correlated to those PulseChain metrics, or maybe it's on PulseX, I forget. But as liquidity picks up on chain and as volume picks up on chain, you can actually see that directly being correlated with the price of pTGC and UFO. When it's going up, usually pTGC's price is going up as well. And when it's going down, you can see a consolidation period on pTGC as well, too. Which is just interesting that you can look at other metrics besides this price and see how it's not only correlated to PulseChain, but now you can even step out to other blockchains, right? The things that really move the market, probably like Bitcoin, probably like Ethereum, and you can see how they're all correlated, not just price-wise, but market activity-wise, too.
Okay. The average volume on PulseChain was down from 59 million in February to 42 million in March. February is really high, actually. January was 27 million. pTGC total volume, my numbers I'm missing some zeros. It's a little, I went through this a little too hastily. So the total, now let me get averages. Those might be a little easier to understand. Average volume in March was on pTGC was $425,000. In February, it was 771, January 397, and it pretty much goes down. Back in July, it was 27,000. This month, $425,000. Fee distribution was $618,000 compared to 1.1 million in February. So the fee distribution was down. Of course, the ratio was down from 19.7 average in February to 12.5 in March. Average holding yield. So this would give everybody an idea how much you would earn per 1 million pTGC. So the average holding, just for your in reflections, for 1 million, holding 1 million pTGC was 46 per day compared to 35 in February. Does anybody not know why that is? You know why that is, Zen.
Yeah, but you can say it.
Okay. It's because price is down. And when the price is down, we're down like a 5 or 6x from our previous all-time high, which I think we hit that in, was that in February or January when we were at an all-time high?
I think January.
Okay. So all-time high in January, when the cost per token is higher, the contract can't buy as many tokens dollar per dollar. So now that we've come down in price, the contract can buy more tokens, which is, so it's like we win if price goes up, we win if price goes down. Only in terms of like when we're winning, when price is down and we can buy more tokens, it means we're burning more tokens, which just affects the future. It also helps builds our bag. When price goes up, then the tokens that we've earned are more valuable. So that's why we earned more per million in March, even though the volume was down. Same for staking. In February, you earned 53 pTGC per 1 million. In March, it was 70. The unlocks, Zen, the unlocks doubled from February to March. 763 pTGC. So if you had, again, 1 million pTGC in a 100% lock, 10 years, in February you earned 763 pTGC. In March, 1,447. So there was 353 million pTGC early and locked in February, and 670 million, almost a double, in March.
So what is that? Because before you were saying what the daily amounts were, right? You were saying how much you were earning daily for staking. Was it like 70 a day?
Yes, 70.
And then for the locking, were you saying the monthly amount that you earned?
Yes. Yep. 1,447.
Let's divide that real quick.
Yeah, I should have an average in there. That is a...
So 1,400 and what?
47.
47 divided by 30. So 48 tokens. So I believe that's more than you get for just holding. I forget what the number you said what for holding was per day.
46.
Oh yeah, so it's just over what you receive for holding if you were locking, which is quite cool, right? Like I personally did not think that the APY for locking was going to compare with the holding, right? You have to, obviously that's not staking, but it's definitely interesting, right? Like for you to ultimately double your holding rewards without locking, you technically would need to, and you take away the staking aspect, you would need to double your holdings.
Yes.
Which obviously costs you twice as much money. But there's a way to double your APY
yes.
without having to spend twice as much money. You just have to have a little bit more conviction in your play.
Yeah.
And have a longer mindset.
I will I'll get us an average for next month. It's all good. I don't know about you, but I love this monthly data. I just like getting the perspective of where we are. I like seeing the growth.
I like monthly data a lot better than daily data, even weekly data, because sometimes you can get lost in the leaves of looking at daily data because you're so focused on what's going on in a 24-hour period.
Yeah.
But I feel like zooming out and looking at monthly periods shows a lot better of a picture, and not so much like the day-to-day nonsense that goes on with crypto.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. It's the the monthly data is I got to go through this tedious process of getting this data every day. And then you really, it all comes together on the monthly. And it'll be an interesting data set to reflect back on in like a couple of years when we're in the next bear market, and we can look back at all the happenings in the previous months.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of wondering if we could pinpoint which parts of this spreadsheet. You actually asked me this, and that's why I'm bringing it up. If we could pinpoint which data is the most important to us, and then see if we can get either Snowflake, because Snowflake has Secreto Bank, which is tracking a lot of liquidity and volume data.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably one of the best sites for the volume and liquidity. And then Kong has, his look into pTGC site. It would be super awesome if we could figure out which data is the most important to us, and then see if maybe they could build out a chart for that data that shows us either a weekly or a monthly chart.
Yeah.
Maybe weekly. I'm just trying to think, because monthly for us to start now, for the data to really start populating, we'd have to go, because I don't know if they can rewind because they haven't been collecting the data back then, or maybe they have. Maybe they can rewind it, or just look at previous data that's been logged, maybe on Debt Screener and stuff like that. Maybe they can pull that data from back then.
Mm-hmm.
But if anything, start logging it now, and it can be looked at in real time without having to constantly input that data every single day.
Okay.
It'd be super cool, and then we could see it on charts as well, visually.
That would be really sweet.
Mm-hmm.
There are ways to make charts with, I think, at least Excel. I don't know if you can do it in Google Sheets where I'm recording this stuff, but I've seen some pretty fancy charts that can be built with a spreadsheet. If you just,
I would assume it's on Google Sheets. They're pretty much the exact same thing. I don't think they would leave out one of the most important parts of Excel is the graphing, the data side of it. Yeah, I guess if they can't, we can at least, get the data to plug into a graph ourselves.
Yeah. Yep.
It'd be cool on their end if they could do it, even if it wasn't all the data, because then you wouldn't need to log it. It would just populate.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be wonderful. Really would. Average tokens burned per day in March. Okay, let me get my eyes on this. Average pTGC tokens burned today. Per day. So this is the total pTGC burned per day was, I'm going to call that 17 million. It was 12 million in February. Again, that's a function of the price and the contract being able to buy more tokens. So we burned 17 million per day. That can't be per day. Oh, that's in red. I think that must be the total. Well, anyhow, it gives you a perspective, and I need to fix that. That's why I need to fix the ones in red. I'm telling myself out loud publicly. And then the average pTGC burn.
Are you saying you don't think we've burned 17 million a day, or do you think that's too much or too little?
Well, I can find out.
Because right now we've had a pretty slow volume day in the last 24 hours. and we've already burned 11 million in the last 24 hours. So I think 17 million is actually very easily achievable.
Yeah,
if that was your concern.
Yeah, give me a second and I will find out. Yeah, I think it's an average of 16.8 million. I'm calling that 17. It is per day. Yeah. And then, but let's see. Last month it was 12 million. So we're burning more per day. Average pTGC burned by pTGC per day, because there's a difference. You know, there are a lot of things that burning pTGC more than just pTGC itself. There's UFO, there are other contracts. So the tokens burned by pTGC is 5.4 million compared to 3.5 in February. pTGC burned by UFO per day is 8.3 million. So UFO is burning 53% more pTGC than pTGC. That's sweet. Last month it was 40. Last month UFO burned 43% more. January it burned 32% more. December it burned 205% more.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. I love UFO for a couple different reasons. One being it's UFO. Two being it burns pTGC. It's beautiful. Average holders added, and this to me, Zen is like the metric of metrics, because without people, we're depending on the contract, which is wonderful. We've always said we don't need users for us to get paid, which is true. However, we love users. The average holders added per day in March was 25, February 48. And the highest on record was February. Average new wallets per day, but it was 25 in March. Total new wallets was 761. I mean, when you've got however many wallets we have, do we have 14,000? I think something like that. I forget. And you're adding 761 in a month. That's a good number. You know, last month we added 1,335. It's bullish, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that's especially good because I don't think the amount of users increasing on chain is increasing that much right now. So we are able to keep gaining our user base and bringing on new holders, even though I don't think a lot of new holders are coming to the chain quite yet. But when PulseChain starts, kind of trending back upwards again, and we got a thriving chain and prices are going up and there is new users coming to the chain for us to educate on pTGC and UFO, it should make it even easier for us to increase the daily holder count as well.
Yeah. We are 66 holders away from 14,000. And at an average of 25 a day, we could be there by the end of the week. We should have 14,000 holders. UFO total volume was okay. Now we're kind of getting into the UFO section. UFO total volume was $11 million compared to 12.3 last month. Highest month was December. The average volume was 370,000. Yeah, I should not even do the totals because we look at it on a daily basis. So the average UFO volume was 370,000. Last month, it was 475,000. But in July, 36,000. I mean, we're a 10x, Zen. We're a 10x from where we were in July in volume.
Yeah, and like right now, I think we're a little below a 10x in price. So this kind of goes back to the data that I've previously talked about, that as our price clicks up X's, since a lot of our volume is mechanically driven, we can actually mechanically make estimates about what our volume could be in the future based on our liquidity size and our price size, right? Since a lot of other assets don't mechanically drive their volume, they rely pretty much 100% off of the human interaction of it. But I do think that that's an important metric to look at, right? When we were 10x less, our volume was 10x less. Well, now that we're 10x more, all of our volume is 10x more. So what happens if we do another 10x? Or what happens if we do 100x from these levels? And 100x could be from a 10x on PulseChain, a 10x on UFO against PulseChain. That equals a 100x with the X multiplier. Well, we can actually look at the data that we've found in the past, and then knowing how our volume is mechanically driven just off of the liquidity pool size and the amount of money market makers need to move, we can take an educated guess and say, oh, wow, if we 10x from here, there's a good chance our volume also 10x's because we mechanically can drive that volume due to our liquidity web also being up 10x. Well, what happens if, again, if we 50x or 100x from here, it might evenly increase the volume if our liquidity web also goes up that much. Again, when your price runs up against the blockchain, your liquidity web doesn't evenly grow at the same amount of X's. But if the blockchain you're built on does a 10x, well, then your liquidity also would do a 10x as long as there's no one adding and removing and, no one's doing heavy selling or anything like that. But I mean, if it just stayed ratio-wise even, we could actually see mechanically our volume keep increasing that even amount. And that data that you just provide kind of just proves one of the things that I've been talking about for the last multiple years is it's not a guarantee, but what we've seen in the past is it actually kind of all comes up linearly. As our price increases X's, we actually believe the liquidity is increasing somewhat similar amount of X's, while also our volume increasing a similar amount of X's, which is important to our system because the volume is what's buying and burning our tokens. That's what's paying the APY to the holders. That's what's adding the liquidity. That's what's giving funds in the DAO, making the machine just keep going and going and going. So I do find that data that you just said very interesting.
Yeah. All right, cool.
I don't think we've talked about that before, honestly. I don't think you ever brought that number up. Or maybe I just didn't pick up on it.
Yeah, I think I brought it up. We just hadn't looked at it from that perspective. I mean, it's clearly a 10x. It's beautiful. Give me a second. I'll make a note. So the fee distribution was 576,000 compared to 800,000 in February. So it went down. Don't interpret my voice as bearish. I'm not. The average ratio in February is 1.6. It was 0.9 in March. Average yield in PLS actually decreased from 349 in February to 344 in March. So, and that's LP yield. So if you're LP in UFO, you earn PLS. And holding yield, if you just hold your UFO, you earn more UFO. Well, in February, you earned 75 per million. 75 UFO per million average per day. And then in March, it was 141. So about a double. Average tokens burned in February was 51 million per day. And then 99 million in March. Holders added. So the highest holders added month we've had so far on record, on my record, which I started in September, was November. We added 35 per day on average. January is 31, February 18, March is 5. Total new wallets. Yeah, that'll be a total new wallets, man. In November we added over 1,000, and in March we added 126.
I'm not looking at the chart, but if I remember correct, November was when we were really starting to run up,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So I'd say that's just directly correlated. Our price was running up from new holders coming in, and obviously probably new holders were being attracted to the system just due to price going up, and it was catching eyes, and people were talking and excited, and morale was super good.
Yes. That was I think November and UFO was just a precursor of things to come. What do you always, or what have you said in the past, that pTGC's volume is more user directed, whereas UFO's volume is more bot driven, right? Because of the thick liquidity. How did you say that?
Yeah, I believe the majority, or I wouldn't say the majority, but pTGC's volume tends to have a lot more human interaction with it, obviously because it's been out longer, because it's the main token of the ecosystem, and because there's more holders. And obviously it's up more X's as well, so that means people are up more, which usually means bigger bags, which means more buying and selling, etc. Where UFO is more mechanically driven. And what we've noticed is where UFO really starts to thrive is when the tokens it's connected to start to thrive as well. You can really see the UFO machine turn on and pick up because a large amount of its liquidity is with those assets. So you have to, remind yourself that Hart's law works in both directions. So as the farm is decreasing in value, obviously the machine is kind of slowing down, which we've been decreasing in value, I think, since December on PulseChain. So you should naturally see UFO start to slow down, but that doesn't mean that the machine's really running any worse. It's just the liquidity is shrinking, so the market makers need to move less value to fix the pairs. But when the value of those assets right now, PulseChain's near an all-time low, right? We're at a quarter of SAC or less than a quarter of a SAC. But when these assets start to run back up, you can actually see the mechanically driven volume pick back up, not only because the price of the liquidity is increased, so market makers need to move more money now, but also because usually on a chain where prices are going up means volume is increasing as well, because people are in profits, or they have better morale, or if they're trying to move to the thing that has the most green, so on and so forth. There's lots of reasons, but we have noticed just in general on days of big human interaction, pTGC might have more volume, but on days that there's volatile shifts or good volume days on PulseChain, UFO will have more volume just because of the web being bigger.
Nice. Yeah. I love these two tokens. They're different, Yeah. Well, that's it for the monthly data. There are a couple of questions.
I was going to see if you had this data real quick. Do you have the percentage of supply that gets burned monthly of both pTGC and UFO on record?
Give me a second.
Do you have at least the quantity of tokens? Because then we could reverse, figure out what percentage that quantity of tokens is of the supply. We can't just look at quantity of tokens because obviously there's different supplies of pTGC and UFO. but I would like to see what rate we are burning on average of percent of supply of pTGC and what rate of supply we are burning of UFO of supply. And not only for our own information to kind of project possibly how long it will get to 15 and, so on and so forth, percentage of the supply, but also seeing compared to each other, which one's buying and burning itself at faster rates.
Yeah.
Does UFO have a chance of catching up to pTGC at the 12%? Obviously, pTGC has been out a lot longer. So not a lot longer, but 8 months or something like that. But I would like to just see which one's buying and burning itself at a faster rate currently. Obviously, UFO's also buying and burning pTGC, but that doesn't necessarily mean that percentage of supply is decreasing as fast as UFO, because UFO is cheaper in price.
Yes.
So since UFO is cheaper in price, it's easier to buy and burn supply, etc. So I don't know. I just was seeing if we had any of that data, and if we don't, I think that would be awesome data to start taking note of.
Yeah. Well, I write down the tokens burned every day. So for each of these tokens. So let me see. I'm sure I could flesh that out to see. So what you would like to, let me just recap. What you would like to see is the total percent of tokens burned per day.
More importantly, I'm looking at monthly, because daily it's like you get lost in the in the noise a little bit. But monthly, I would like to see what percentage of the supply we're burning on average. And if there was a way we can go back multiple months, we could be like, oh, okay, we're burning 0.2%, 0.2%, 0.3%. And we could then kind of, if we found an average, like if we found we can find a mean, we can actually take that mean if we have enough data and start multiplying that out into the future to make, no promises, but future predictions of what supply could be in the future, 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 6 years from now, if metrics stayed on point. The reason I kind of like this metric is the burn rate is very related to price, right? And as price goes up of the asset, liquidity is going to go up of the asset, which means market makers need to move more money. So it doesn't necessarily mean, even though price is going up, we're going to burn less. As long as our volume's also increasing and our liquidity is increasing, we should be able to keep burning somewhat similar amounts, but the dollar value would be worth a lot more if we keep in these trajectories. It's just, I don't know. I think it's interesting information. I do think there's a lot of power in the idea that UFO does have so much liquidity compared to its market cap being a quarter of the size. And that gives it a unique advantage to buy and burn supply mechanically when the mechanical levers are really pulling, right? And these mechanical levers are volatility and volume on chain. So if most goes on a run, or, if PulseX or Inc goes on the run, like whenever these large liquidity pairs kind of shift away from the other tokens, these create these market maker abilities, which, when this happens with UFO, it can really buy and burn a lot of supply due to the prices being so cheap, the market cap being so low. pTGC is fairly low in general also, but comparatively to liquidity, UFO is crazy, right? Like the liquidity is like 30% of the market cap.
Right. I will get that information. That would be an interesting little experiment to see, which one's burning tokens faster, the percentage of the supply. Yeah. And I could do that in probably 10 minutes. I'm not going to do it right now. It's going to take some brain work.
Yeah. And also not even like comparison to each other. I think it'd be nice for us to take an educated guess onto where this could be a year from now, 4 years from now, 6, we can kind of start multiplying that stuff out. And I think being able to take data and predict the future helps users make educated decisions for their future.
There you go. Absolutely. Yep. Where do I want to allocate this capital? I want to put it in either UFO or pTGC. And then you can look at which one is burning supply faster. You can use that in your consideration for picking one token over the other. Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that to my attention. Yeah, man. I like this. I like this data. It's good stuff.
Yeah, and not really like only comparatively to each other, but comparatively to just the general market, right?
Sure. We do have a question in the chat from LaFrog. He can't hop on the spaces right now, but he's like, so what is happening with the Dow funds? It's like we're stacking up Dow funds, and which makes me excited. I've been watching it. What's the plan? Can we talk about that?
Yeah, we can talk about that. So as of right now, the plan was just, see what the market's doing, because when we started stacking it, this is a couple months ago, right? It really felt like the market started shifting downwards, and it for sure did, obviously. And you don't necessarily want to keep injecting those funds when the market is just pulling you downwards and pulling you downwards. The easiest example is sometimes when you're stuck in like a current in the ocean, you could ultimately waste all your energy trying to swim against the current, where a lot of times the best thing you can do to save your life is to chill out and relax, let the current take you where it's going, and then you've reserved all your energy. So once you're in a weaker part of the current or out of that current, you could then swim to safety, right?
Yeah.
This is the basics of when you get stuck in a rip current in the ocean. You don't swim against it, you don't fight it, you kind of let it take you. And then it will find a floor, you'll find your way out or to a weaker point in that current. And when you hit that point, then you use your energy there to get yourself to safety, so on and so forth. So that's like a real world example of how we were kind of looking at it. So what we were kind of saying is like, okay, let's let the market tell us where our floor is. Let's let the market bring us to where we can find some support, not only for pTGC, but for PulseChain. And not only for PulseChain, but for ETH. And not only with ETH, but with Bitcoin. And let's see where that floor is. And then let's find a foundation to kind of start building off of. And that's not just buy and burns, but liquidity adds, etc. So that was kind of the strategy there. And we're kind of just paying attention to say, hey, where do we think this floor is, this foundation is to build off of?
Okay. Do you think it's going to be more of a dollar cost average move with the Dow funds, or is it going to be like a, I don't know, 50-50 or a one-time perch, distribution of those funds?
I'm pretty much always a DCA kind of person, right? I think DCAing is a really good strategy for slippage, for a ton of things, right? The market, I believe no one really knows what direction it's going. Even when all indicators point green, sometimes it goes red. So
yeah.
With a DCA strategy, and I even talk about this with pTGC and UFO for users looking to scoop discounts, right? Like the DAO kind of operates in the same idea is, you don't know where the bottom of PulseChain is. You don't know where the bottom of pTGC is, but you can kind of look at a few indicators about when PulseChain's kind of finding a bottom, rounding off pTGC, and you can try to just DCA a few zones to try to hit that exact bottom, because if you can hit the exact bottom, we know the X's that you can do, right? Like if you found the bottom of pTGC last time PulseChain was at the bottom, if you're DCAing that kind of area, you did a 45X when PulseChain went up like 3X, for an example.
Mm-hmm.
But who knew when that exact bottom is? Not a lot of people. So if you took a DCA strategy kind of buying that, that whole time period, you would have had the best chance of finding the day of that exact bottom. But more importantly, you kind of just scooped up a whole range, and you kind of hedged yourself against like, hey, it might go lower, but if it starts going up from here, at least I grabbed at these prices.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of dollar cost averaging too. So that sounds like an excellent strategy to me.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are hoping for Bitcoin to find a floor around these levels, right? Because if we can find a floor that would give us a better shot for there to be another push on this cycle, you know, like this be the consolidation period, and then maybe, you know, some months of green candles going into an alt season, finishing off this bull run. I think that's what most people are hoping for. I think they thought it was coming a little sooner and we'd be in that right now, which obviously just isn't true. But if we don't hold these levels, you know, that's not a really good look for this bull market, and that might mean it was a premature weak bull market. So if we can build off of this level in Bitcoin and start closing some green candles, I think that would be a good indicator that there is a few good months to come for a bull market in blockchain. If we don't start closing some green candles, I think that would mean that, you know, it most likely got front ran. Too many people know the cycles now and are prematurely, you know, taking profits, and we're kind of not doing the similar 4-year cycle that we have in the past. But we'll see, right? Like I said, you don't really know. The nice thing about pTGC and UFO is, as far as generating value, it doesn't care if the market's moving up or market's moving down. We're going to generate revenue off of both scenarios. Obviously, we all know we prefer it to the upside. We want to generate the value off of prices going up, not prices going down. But that doesn't mean that we don't use the prices going down to our benefit. Like you talked about, we've been buying and burning and paying more tokens per dollar value for the last month because prices are lower. And we get to utilize the cheap prices to our benefit. Also, if prices continue to go down, we're going to use those cheap prices to our benefit. We're going to get more liquidity in there. We're going to get more tokens burnt, and we're going to get ready for when the market does shift back in our favor. We haven't really gotten to see a good market move with pTGC and UFO. I think we would all be pretty bummed if that was it. But out of everything, I think pTGC and UFO will continue to thrive and utilize either direction that this market goes to its benefit. As, you know, I guess the title of this space is, you know, the index of PulseChain. By one, you hold all. So by holding pTGC or UFO, by holding one token, you're technically holding all the blue chips of PulseChain, or most of the blue chips of PulseChain, and you generate APY off of their movements up and down. And it also is a hyper-deflationary asset.
Yeah. I don't think that we're going to miss the bull run. I think Richard Hart has some genius in him now, and you know, in the 5 years since he's learned a lot. In the 5 years since he launched Hex, and he's been awful quiet. He's active on Twitter, you know, but we haven't heard from him in a while. He's still grinding, you know, and I think this is what I think. I think he's got a plan, and he's not going to let his chain come out of this bull run without being very successful. I think he wants to make an impact, not only for all his friends, because he has close friends that are in PulseChain, but he knows that he has, you know, an entire community that are somewhat depending on him. And he's going to make his chain successful to some degree or another.
Yeah, that's a great point too, right? Like, I do think Richard has the ability financially to have his chain do a bull run with the rest of the market necessarily not doing well at all. He does have that capabilities. That kind of goes back to the swimming against the current thing. If you're strong enough and you're a good enough swimmer, if you have enough value, you can swim against it. You know, for an example,
yeah.
You know, pTGC has funds right now on the side that can swim against the current. You just have to kind of, you know, make the decision like, hey, is this the right time? Do we want to use this right now? Is this the best strategic opportunity? Well, if you have more funds, you don't have to really think about that too much. For example, if RH has hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, for an example, I think $100 million injected into PulseChain today equals like 100x or something like that. Well, there you go. There's the bull run on PulseChain. If no one sold, right, obviously people would sell into it, but also you would hope people buy into it. So let's just say no external factors, he injects 100 mil, that could be like 100x on PulseChain. Well, yeah, he has 100 mil. We see it in his wallet right now. He absolutely doesn't need the market to help him. I think he prefers the market to help him because then he can get a lot more value out of that value that he has. But he 100% could act without even being in a bull market. That's how much power that's with that wallet.
Yeah. 100 million injected into PulseHex, PulseX, and Inc. And if pTGC just moved up a 2x against those tokens, against Pulse, for example, give me 1 second. It would be a number of X's. A number of X's. It would be 480. 480 X's. 13 cent. Would be a 13 cent pTGC.
Yeah, that's kind of the important thing about having a sustainable system on an undervalued blockchain. If the blockchain is only remotely successful, it creates an amazing opportunity for holders of these assets. RH has even talked about this. He brought it up in Pump.Tires. He had a tweet saying, like, could you imagine launching a token at the bottom of a successful blockchain? Well, he was talking about literally just pump tires meme tokens that are going to die. Could you imagine a system that's sustainable, that's buying and burning itself, has liquidity ads, has a farm being built on top of it, all the things that he preaches to make a successful protocol built on top of his already success, or not currently successful, but if the blockchain is successful, what that could equal for holders of these assets. It starts to hit numbers that are just absolutely crazy that you start to wonder, like, that alone could create a bull market over here. Just seeing the thriving sub tokens on top of the blockchain, because what does that then attract? That attracts users, because if they see, Banana winning so hard, they want to win also. Or if they see protocols built on this, or for an example, people just not even protocols, right? Like the whole Solana, launch on Pump.Fun as a influencer, and then pump your own bag, and usually they are rug pulls, but it's a whole thing, right? Well, if you're more likely to have your thing that you're launching do more X's on PulseChain over Solana, what's that going to attract? That's going to attract those influencers. That's going to attract those meme coin creators. That's going to actually also attract real protocols like pTGC and UFO. If they see pTGC and UFO winning so hard because they built over here on PulseChain, and PulseChain's up 10x, well, 10x isn't much, right? Here jumped up 1,000x. So maybe they're going to start bringing these protocols here and create very unique, big ecosystems on Ethereum. Like, a lot of people don't realize that Ethereum's value isn't because of only Ethereum. It's because of all the innovative tech that was built on top of Ethereum to give it the value, right? Because to interact with all that innovative tech, you need Ethereum.
Mm-hmm. Paul Sachs.
And then you also look at the fact that Vitalik isn't the one building all that innovative tech. And a lot of people look at RH to build all the innovative tech, which is awesome that he has, because he's taken some of the key innovative tech and made it to where there's really no financial gain for a single party, and all the financial gain out of that system just goes back to supporting the system. This is also a recent tweet he's had, right? Like, hey, people should support products or ecosystems that don't just take the value they earn and just bridge out of crypto and change their life in fiat. Like, we should pay attention to what products take the revenue generated and either re-inject it in the product or at least keep it on chain, right? A lot of tokens or protocols or businesses built around crypto, with the earnings, they actually don't even keep it in crypto, which makes you question even what they believe in, for an example. So one thing unique about PulseChain is RH owns the DEX, RH owns the farms, RH has better tokenomics with PulseChain to where tons of the value actually stays on chain, and not just staying on chain, but it's like buying and burning the supply, like removing it from existence. This is the same idea that's built around pTGC. Is it's generating revenue, but the revenue that's being generated is designed to stay on chain. It's designed to stay within the protocol. 100%, someone like Banana, if you earn APY, you can close that APY down and I guess take that off chain, right? But you're actually incentivized to keep it on chain with price appreciation. And you're actually incentivized to even hold the majority of your bag on chain because you are earning APY off of it. You're actually putting that value to work, and you can actually securely sit here on chain knowing that the supply of the asset that you're holding isn't inflating into infinity. It's actually decreasing every single day. And then on top of that, the value that's being generated from that value is constantly getting pushed into a smaller and smaller cup, making it to where pressure is getting built up. And eventually when there's enough pressure, it pops.
Yeah. And on top of that, we're earning APY on our APY. When you hold pTGC or UFO, you're earning reflections. And as soon as you get those reflections, they're earning their own reflections. So it's like a snowball. It's like your dollar cost averaging every minute of every day without even needing to get your wallet out and transact. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, especially, in an environment where I feel like a lot of people are tapped out of their DCAs, like I think PulseChain Sacrifice was what, four years ago now or something like that.
2021, I think it was August of 2021. So yeah, coming up on 4 years, 3.5.
Yeah. So I do think DCAing the lowest prices of PulseChain is possibly a good idea. You might never get these opportunities ever again. You might get even cheaper prices 6 months from now. I really don't know. But the nice thing about, pTGC and UFO assets is you're technically DCAing into it every single day, just in an asset that's backed by that currency. Or I guess if you're LP providing, you're actually getting the PLS itself. But the thing is they have so much liquidity, the asset is actually a claim check on those PulseChain tokens anyways. So based on the size that you hold, you're actually DCAing every single price that PulseChain hits. The lower it goes, you're DCAing those prices. The higher it goes, well, yeah, you're DCAing those prices too. But
Yes.
when you're DCAing the higher prices, you can actually get those tokens for free because you're DCAing for free. And those are the profits that you could take at the right times. And you actually don't even ever need to touch your initial if you've stored up enough or you have enough to make the APY decent enough.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I just love it. I love the Grays ecosystem. Who wants to come up and make some comments, ask some questions?
Yeah, no one's raising their hand right now, but I think you had a comment that I interrupted on your YouTube.
Oh, it was Paul Sachs mentioned. He says, imagine if one day RH posts, and it could be anything, but he includes a little alien symbol. That'd be so cool. We'd run around and show all our friends that post.
Yeah, I think that would be cool. I don't think it's necessary for our ecosystem.
No.
I think for products to succeed, they don't need the approval of any entity. They can just show their strength with facts on the blockchain, right? And we're trying to show our strength with the amount of LP we had, the amount of price appreciation we have, the amount of users that we have, the amount of TVL that we have within our own ecosystem. Like, these are the things that I think are more important for us to showcase. Yeah, if the founder of the blockchain gives us a head nod here or there, sweet. That would be awesome. But it's not necessary to thrive on this chain.
Yeah, that's true. It would be fun. It'd still be fun. Linda Cook says, this is one hot protocol. I think, Linda, you must be paying attention. Yeah.
What's up, B-Roots?
Hope you're doing good, B.
Oh, I am.
I'll be right back, Zen.
My timing is impeccable, Pete. I'm letting you know. There is a timing, let's just say, what's the best way to say it? There's a timing aspect of crypto, and there's a massively timing aspect into pTGC. When that song racks up, PulseChain likes to move. When PulseChain likes to move, pTGC moves harder.
Yeah, B-Roots, I think the first time that song played was probably around a 1 million market cap on pTGC.
Oh, yeah. That was the creation of that song and the creation of that video. And I want to make another one, but it's so hard to top it. I've tried. I'm just like, it's not as good.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, like when you really pay attention to the video, like of, if you want to call it like the abduction or like the takeover, whatever is happening in that video. I can't think of the right word right now, but the amount of like X's that pTGC has done is obviously nice. But then if you really even think about like the amount of RH tickers that we've been able to add to the liquidity web and increase the machine and become bigger and bigger is also very, very relatable to that video as well.
Oh, yeah. It's the takeover. That's what I like to call it, the takeover. It's not a bad takeover. If people hear the takeover and just assume it's negative mindset, it really isn't a negative mindset. It's literally just sucking everything in and giving you what you crave the most in crypto. The ability to be comfortable, the ability to go to sleep at night and realize you're going to wake up and you're not going to be 90% down in a single candle, and then the ability to have gains, and probably the most underrated mindset to have in crypto that no one really talks about is the ability to be comfortable. When you have all that stuff put together, that's where confidence comes in, because you know what you're getting, you know what you're going to get out of it. And there's a ton of people looking. There's just a ton of people that's just like on the sidelines. And I think, we saw the biggest pump from our $12 million market cap, I believe, when we started ramping up, a couple of weeks before PulseChain moved all the way up to this recent all-time high. That took a month to do. So people don't realize that, that was a long cycle and a very powerful cycle. But not everyone actually was in crypto. It was in pTGC. So that's the funniest thing about it. Is we still didn't even have over 10,000. We didn't nowhere near 10,000 holders at that time. So now people are starting to get it. In that time period of going up, you got a lot of people that are witnessing it and listening to it and listening and understanding about, what was going on. And that's when these little weekly spaces calls, got the biggest as they can get. Obviously, things are going down. The market's down. So you're going to see a little decrease in that. I'm seeing a decrease in followers, a decrease in subscriptions, the decrease in watchers on my YouTube. But every single YouTuber, including the biggest YouTuber in crypto ran, is seeing the exact same thing. So I wouldn't be too worried about that, because that's just a norm and something I actually really look at and can tell when I start seeing those statistics start to creep up. Well, it's probably about time to go. Maybe Moon King has a way to play songs at the right timing and say different things at the right timing, because I'm constantly studying those statistics, which over time has been 100% on point. So I think when you add on all that, I do think this next leg up is actually going to be the most powerful leg up, because people understand it. That is usually the biggest pump, when people understand it and they're waiting on the sidelines to get the best price. So when that pump happens, those sideline people increase the pump. So if PulseChain goes up with people on the sidelines increasing the pump, you're about to see probably the biggest, in my opinion, not financial advice, not trying to predict anything, just based off of my 13, 14 years in crypto, I'm willing to bet that the people that are on the sidelines, they don't get what they want. They start FOMOing in, and these are the bigger players, the ones that can throw in 5-6 figures, and it doesn't have a lot of slippage. That's when those players come in, because I've seen some of the biggest people on PulseChain go from talking down on pTGC, now understanding it. I talked to the Firewell the other day, and he went from down to talking it down on it to, okay, maybe it isn't that bad. Maybe I'll get it. So that's what I mean by, I'm not saying Firewell's coming on pTGC. I'm just giving examples that they are starting to see, they're starting to hear, they're starting to understand, and in my opinion, the very next run up, they will ape. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, and I think that's fueled even more by them having to compete with the pTGC DAO, which I think now holds something north of 16 billion PLS and growing by the day.
Yeah, and Nick, to also add to that, they also have to compete with the automatic functions within pTGC and the automatic functions within UFO that are buying and burning pTGC daily as well.
That is correct. And with PulseChain rise, which we all think is going to happen, and B-Roots was kind of talking about there, comes higher volumes. And with pTGC's massive liquidity pools that also grow, more volumes to that just increases those automatic buybacks and burns, increases the amount of DAO funds that are being accrued, and increases the USD dollar valuation of the DAO Pulse. Like I said, it's over 16 billion Pulse right now. That at current prices is 350,000, 400,000 USD. Well, Pulse even does a 10% move. Every 10% move at Pulse, that's another $40,000 in economic power by the DAO that already exists there.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, the one thing I like about the DAO is a lot of reserves that are out there are not auto-filling back up behind it. So even if funds get used out of the DAO, there is a system put in play that constantly is refilling the funds, making it to where there's more funds to access in the future as well. A lot of other things, if there is funds, there is a cap to those funds. And when those funds dry up, the ability to constantly add or add LP or pivot in situations become dry and unable to do, where with this system, even if those funds do get used, it constantly is filling up as they get used as well, making it to where there's more funds in the future.
Yeah, something cool to see too was even during that correction and that massive sell-off of everything, you saw the volume spike so much, and the burning was insane to see how much got taken off the market. So when you have these violent moves to the upside or the downside, you're just freaking deleting so much supply, and you're filling the DAO, and you're burning, and you're giving back to holders, you're giving back to stakers. So the machine's doing its thing, man, and it's gearing up for another massive move, in my opinion. And a lot of people are going to cope on this, and a lot of people are going to FOMO in on this one.
Yeah, I think B. Roots was talking about that, the amount of holders has increased since the last time we're at these lows of PulseChain. And another thing that's increased is the amount of tokens the DAO has bought and burned, or not the DAO, the smart contracts or anything, the amount that the debt address has accumulated throughout the last 6 months. That's a very important metric. That's supply that's been bought and is never going to be sold, right? Which, in a normal situation, a user buys, and eventually that user has a number that they're looking to hit before they, sell a portion or take complete profits, leave a move back, whatever it is. But the smart contract with the debt address, it doesn't have a number it's looking to hit. Everything that it's accumulating every single day, if it's $3,000, if it's $10,000, if it's $20,000, it is never going to sell that on the market again, forever. 10 years from now, this could be a 1,000x, and it will still never sell those tokens. So it's really important to kind of look at that happening every single day, and almost you could look at it like a holder. I think today it's only been like $4,000 of buy and burns, but that's just imagine that as someone coming into the pTGC ecosystem and buying $4,000 worth as a holder, and then like losing the keys and everything, which would suck, but that's like the equivalence of what's going on there. But also to the aspect of holders, the holders that have increased, this is my personal opinion. I haven't like really dug into this data, but I think it's somewhat accurate, is you kind of also, you can look at the quantity of holders, and you could chat on or talk on this, or Mando or Ian, but you also need to pay attention to the amount of holders that hold roughly $1,000 worth or more, because these are the people who actually care about the gains of the product and will talk about the product once it starts going up again. You can look at all of the holders, but a lot of the holders in those ecosystems are holding like $10 worth, $20 worth, $50 worth. They're like just moonbags where they've already taken their profits. They just left a little bit behind, or their dust wallets, etc. And one thing that I believe has increased in the last 6 months is the amount of positions holding $1,000 worth or more. I think some of the larger holders have maybe consolidated their positions a little bit, so maybe those got shrunk down, and then some new users have came in and have increased their bag. And I honestly would guess, if you had to ask me, the amount of $1,000 bag holders from 6 months ago to now has probably came close to doubling. So that means on this next push up, there's 2 times the amount of people that care about the success of pTGC and are probably willing to talk about it when it starts moving back upwards.
Yeah, it's going to be the most, in my opinion, it's going to be one of the most talked about coins. Right now, the coin we will not mention is being talked about, whether it's a negative or a positive. I don't think that is a positive. I think that's a stalemate with more potential negative downside. You have most. So obviously, Richard Hart's meme coin will be talked about. The reality of the situation, you can see pTGC and most going back and forth as far as like the number one PRC20 in all of PulseChain that does not have anything to do with the Richard Hart core or forked over coins such as PulseX, PulseChain, Inc., and Hex. And then you also have pTGC, most. That's really it, is all I see that's really being talked about on a serious nature. Everything else is kind of like speculative, as these two assets hold for market share. The craziest thing about it is one burns PulseChain. That's it when it comes to tokenomics. So we have a little push against that. Whereas pTGC not only burns PulseChain, it also burns itself. So there's better tokenomics with this to win. Obviously, one entity can pump his own coin. The plus side about that, there seems to be a pairing with it, whereas we will win just as much. So either way, when it comes down to it, if you're on Ethereum and you're one of two top coins on Ethereum, that's massively bullish for that coin. If you're one of the two top coins on Solana, that's one of the most bullish things you can possibly be. Whether it's BNB, it doesn't matter. Like, of course, everyone wants to be number one, but in reality, if you're like the top 5, 10 coins that's on that protocol, you're absolutely smashing it. And the fact that we're just fighting with 1 and 2 back and forth is bullish. Like, I don't care whether you like the protocol. I don't care whether you're bullish or not. There's a number that are facts, and the facts are pTGC is fighting 1 to 2 spots. So if you're in PulseChain and you are not in both, or if not either or, you're doing your portfolio some misjustice on that. It's not, you're not doing it right. So PulseChain is very undervalued. Because PulseChain is very undervalued, therefore the PRC20s under that are very undervalued. And in my opinion, it only makes sense. It's only opportunity for your portfolio if you believe we're still in the bull market, or if you are more a long-term investor in crypto. If you're listening to this in a recording or you're listening to it now, I'm more to be in line that you care about crypto in some type of way to where you are willing to speculate on it. So it only makes sense.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned it in passing there too, talking about most and pTGC, that there's a liquidity pairing there. You know, there's a pTGC/most liquidity pool with 120,000 liquidity in there. So most is programmed to burn PLS, but indirectly also burns pTGC if it has success or generates volume. Due to any volume in that pair will be taxed at a 5% rate, which then goes back to the buybacks and burns of pTGC, the LP ads, and the passive income for the pTGC holders. So, you know, if you're a pTGC maxi first, you know, if that's what you want to call it, you still want to root for the blue chips to do well. You still want to root for speculative assets like most to do well, or any asset that the pTGC DAO decides to create a liquidity pool with, because that success of those projects will drive the price of pTGC higher as well, due to Hart's law and LP bonding, but also due to the volume generation and the fee generation from the activities that both humans and bots will do with that LP pool. So, you know, you kind of touched base on it briefly, but I wanted to expand on what you're kind of getting at there. And there is already 120,000 liquidity pool there with pTGC and most that is driving volume and is creating, you know, Hart's law between those two assets.
Yeah, I would like to see, personally, I see the community gathering around most more than any other project. It's very obvious that the market goes to where they see fit or what's hot at the moment. That's why we kind of have the index of the RH coins, however you want to label it, whatever kind of word salad you want to get with it. But I personally would like to see that increase a little bit more, especially that there are two products in there that have kind of took the lower spot. So there's been some reallocation going on. So I personally would like to see, I don't want to sway the market, sway the Dow, but, to try to get that beefier over time, over the next few months, because I do see the market going towards most and getting very excited about most a lot. And to be honest with you, maybe throw in some of those other coins that he's created, just a small amount, because at the end of the day, if RH was the one that created it and believe they created it, I do think there will be some type of rotation amongst those coins at some point in time. So that's something, because they're so low in market cap, it doesn't take much. Probably with one DAO or one pullout, you could probably do a bundle of all those things and have a nice small pairing with those coins. But at the same time, if they go up to 10, 20, $50 million market cap, that could be massive in the future. So just something to think about.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, B-Ruth, because another pairing that the DAO did is the pump token, which is also, I'd say, the second most talked about one of those tokens. Do you feel that one has gotten a decent amount of community behind it comparatively to some of the other ones? Obviously, most is the one that seems to have the most adoption to date. It's the highest market cap. It's the one I see most tweeted about by PulseChain community members. But Pump is obviously cheaper. And I think RH has also bought in that one with his own OA wallets as well. So
you got to think about narratives. So we're obviously looking for volatility. Anything super low market cap is going to create volatility, obviously, because once anyone sees a wallet or anything going at those coins, here comes the freaking here comes ape and FOMO. That's kind of what happens, and that's how pTGC is going to win at the end, especially at these lows. So yes, I do think Pump, at narrative-wise, I don't think Pump is really that great narrative-wise, but I'm not the market. So it is what it is. It's second place, absolutely. Trump, you see Richard Hart speaking about Trump all the time. Trump in himself is a meme. So whether his actual Trump coin does good this bull market or it just dies off, it doesn't matter. We got about 3.5 years left of memeing Trump in a positive nature that Richard Hart would agree or like, and that becomes a thing. So Trump, I believe, has a good narrative and something behind it that could work out in our favor. Man, if we had the PDI version, there was a whale that just sold $800,000 worth of PDI. So he had so much, man, the ecosystem would have smashed it on that, and that's just a $1 million market cap coin. If you're holding PDI, it probably wouldn't benefit you that much, but the pTGC would have benefited off of that. So you're going to get a lot of those people selling all out of most to go into Pump because Pump's going out, and then they're going to sell all out of Pump to go into Trump because then they're going to go, whoa, Most is pumping again. Let me do all out, because that's what traders do. They don't even do it the right way. They freaking go all in, all out, and pTGC would massively benefit off of that. But then you've got something like Mars and Elon. That shit's sitting at $100,000 market cap right now. Nobody talks about it, but what makes you think Elon's done for? I don't think Elon's done for. He's getting memed away with the Tesla situations and Mars and all that kind of stuff. So maybe when Elon and Mars and all that stuff starts coming about, maybe those coins start going, and then all of a sudden people go out of modes and go all put a good selection of their money. That's what I see the Hexagon and PulseChain community doing. I see it all the time. And what they do now is 100% what they're going to do times 2 in the bull market. So, if we're taking out $10, $15, $20,000 in in a Dow situation a month or two, and everyone's forgot about all the others, maybe we just get a selection and just say, hey, let me throw $5,000 here, $5,000 here, $5,000 there. Because $5,000 in a $100,000 market cap coin is a top 20 position. Actually, probably a top 10 position right now. So it's just something to think about.
Yeah, I think that is interesting. And talking about the Elon narrative real quickly, and then I'll let somebody else go. I think there is a possibility that coming back by the end of May or early June, because remember, Elon has to step down from his role in Doge after 120 days. Otherwise, he has to become like a full-time government employee, which he's already said he's not going to do. So once Elon gets out of Doge in May at some point, then gets back to doing Tesla and SpaceX and all that, I think the narrative around Elon can switch a little bit. And obviously, it'll be more focused on robotics and Mars and space travel and all that, which might get him back in the news as far as meme coins over on PulseChain. Also, we all expect that the markets in general will probably be better by May and June, which allows more speculative assets to do better. And then hopefully also by April 21st, we have the SEC resolution with Richard Hart and PulseChain as well, which means the training wheels can come off and maybe we see some more chatter talk from Richard, but also some more funds being bridged over to PulseChain as well. And they're going to be looking at meme coins and undervalued assets on the chain.
Yeah, so I would stay away from, and it doesn't hurt because maybe they do well, but this is just my, just my opinion. At the end of the day, it's just my opinion. I have no intel on which Richard Hart meme coins are going to do well, which ones are not going to do well. I don't know. I'm just going off of my intuition, how I look at coins. I would probably stay away from the PulseChain, the Hex, the ADA, mainly because maybe ADA, but I would think about it. Pulse to pulse, it's going to screw people's mindset up. So which PulseChain am I buying? I thought I bought the real PulseChain, and I end up buying this Pump.Tires PulseChain. So you got a lot of new thinking. So I wouldn't. Richard Hart's a smart individual, so I wouldn't think that would be something that he would focus on. So personally, like the Hex, the PulseChain, the ecosystem coins that he launched meme coins under, I probably would stay away from those. And since Elon's going away from the Doge, the Doge, you can also do Dogecoin too. So that's not too bad either. But yeah, like the Hex, the PulseChain, he did a Hex, a PulseChain, an ADA. Did he do a Pulse? I don't think he did a PulseX one. But, those type of ones, I would probably stay away from those ones just because it's what's the narrative there? And does it make sense to actually buy those from a marketing and a narrative perspective? Kind of doesn't make any sense. I think he just made those to kind of throw people off a little bit.
Yeah, but on that point that you're talking about, B-Roots, is we kind of watched this happen for the first year with our pairings with the main RH tickers, is we saw it happen on repeat of, hey, Hex is going to be the biggest mover, and you saw everyone move to Hex, where we generated a ton of value off of that move. And then it was like, oh, Ink's pumping, and then a large amount of people moved to Ink, thinking Ink was going to be the big mover. And then, oh, PulseX is deflationary. This is going to be the big mover. And you see people rotating to this. And then they're like, oh, PLS is the safest. And then you see them rotate it to that. So you can actually see it doesn't matter what even category you're in. If you have a pairing, even with the large RH tickers, the market is constantly making a different decision. They're indecisive of what the best mover is going to be. And most people are trading. So they just move their capital to the next one. But where the pTGC and UFO ecosystem thrive is we're not actually moving any capital. We're just supplying liquidity for the whole thing. And as the market moves and is indecisive, we generate revenue off of this and just use these as pretty much value generation source for the rest of the blockchain. So yeah, we should definitely pick which assets we believe will be lasting the time of this blockchain, and they will have their own unique times to where indecisiveness makes them pump and then obviously come back. But if we can use these moments to generate revenue to keep buying and burning and paying APY and keep us moving in upwards direction, it's great. And then obviously on the most topic, if most becomes highly successful and let's say even becomes the best PRC20 besides RH stickers on this chain, that highly benefits pTGC and UFO, because pTGC I think has 120K with it. I think UFO has 150K with it. So if that asset is actually successful, like we have to realize, like when we entered these pairs, most is still the exact same price ultimately, right? It's not gone up since then. So if most goes up 4x, 5x, well, think about how that LP pair will increase in value. Well, it could be up 3 to 4x if the rest of the market also went up 3 to 4x. Well, now that's 5 times the amount of value working for us, generating revenue, making it to where when there is volatile shifts, market makers need to move 5 times the amount of money, which equals 5 times the amount of value generation for our system.
Mando, what are you doing? Don't try to unmute that mic.
Oh, man, you got me, man. You got me. Damn. I was like, oh, let me get my coffee first, man. You can't outdo that first video soundtrack, though, man. I don't think you're ever gonna be able to do that first.
No, I don't
first
think so
video,
either, man. I tried.
It's
I
too
tried
damn
this week.
good.
I tried this week and it wasn't good at all. I was like, oh.
Yeah, Zen. One of the interesting things is, when you're talking about just holding these tokens on PulseChain, and how they basically are miners, right? But the interesting thing, because pTGC and UFO, because it's so hyper deflationary, they're in a way, they're actually, just by holding them, they're auto compounding miners, because the fact that you constantly have less in supply, and so the remaining amount of yield that is constantly there is having to fit into less and less tokens. So in an effect, you have the same thing going on, where if you take a position in something where you're getting yield and then you just keep putting it in to get more, because generally that token is inflating their actual token supply. It's not deflationary, right? But in this situation, you hold it, and just by holding it, you're getting more of the tokens hitting that wallet as long as you hold it, because there's less and less in supply that's no longer getting that yield. And that's even before you're receiving your yield, right? So there's like a compounding effect. It's a miner that you're actually receiving yield, but even before you talk about the yield you're receiving, those miners are actually auto compounding because the tokens are deflationary. Last night I was thinking about just the nature of compounding, why people compound, because they want to keep up with the rate of inflation, or they want to get up to a point to where they've got X amount of yield per day. But with this system, you kind of get the best of both worlds. You have a miner that's auto compounding while you're receiving yield. That's pretty damn sick.
Yeah, in most mining situations of assets, the assets are, for one, inflationary, because that's how they're paying out the APY. But the other side of it is there's an infinite amount of miners to compete against, right? Like anyone could create a new miner that's faster and improve on the latest edition to make it to where yours eventually becomes obsolete or just doesn't perform well enough. What's unique about this system is the mining of the asset comes from the asset. So the only way you can mine the asset is by owning the asset, which appreciates the price of the asset alone, you know? So you're already increasing the asset by having to buy it to earn yourself more. And then when you're earning yourself more, the value within the liquidity pools are what is working for you. And that value that's put to work is actually buying the asset itself, because it's not getting minted out of thin air. It has to buy it out of the existing liquidity pools, which then again is appreciating your asset before it even pays it out to you, unless it comes from a sell. But at some point that sell did come from a buy, if that was 1 month ago, 6 months ago, 10 months ago, but at some point that user bought it and it is coming to you in a different route. But the point is imagine that it's a decreasing supply. So the supply that's decreasing is a decreasing amount of miners. So it's not even the situation where there can never be any more. It's the situation that there is always less. So every single day, it's kind of like, you know, if you consider 1 million tokens a miner, right? It's like today, there's been like 13 million bought and burnt. So that's 13 miners taken away. That's 13 that can never earn a reward ever again because they're sent to the dead address. So you're constantly competing with less and less and less. And as long as you don't go and resell your miner on the market, no one can never take that from you.
So Zen, who's gonna be the last miner standing, bro?
I think that's the game. To an extent. I think the game, you can play the game so many ways, right? You can play the game saying, I'm never going to let go of mine and I'm just going to let this sit here for multiple cycles. You could play the game to where I know there's cycles and I'm going to try to sell these miners at the top and then rebuy back 5 times more at the bottom. You know, there's plenty of different ways that you can play the game. But I do think at a point, if you zoom out, there is that game, right? Like, who will be, or how many people, or what group of people, or how much is someone willing to pay to hold a good share of these miners, right? Like, it comes to the point where with some people, like I think early PulseChain people here today, if you zoom out 4 years, an early PulseChain person today, you know, someone that got into pTGC, let's say today, you know, they might say, you know what, I don't care about how much this miner is going to be worth in another 4 years. I'm up 1,000x on this miner. I'm just going to take the money and go, right? This could be a possibility. To where someone else that's getting in today, 4 years into the future, is like, I'm never getting rid of this miner. I know what it produces. I know there's always going to be less. There isn't better things in the real world to really put value into as far as assets go that take no maintenance, no upkeep, no middleman, no inflation to the asset. Even with gold, there's an inflation to an extent because they're always mining more gold. It's constantly decreasing. Even with properties, there's taxes technically on the property. There's taxes when you cash out in crypto too, but there's maintenance to the buildings. Usually you have to get tenants into that building if you're renting the building, and sometimes tenants don't pay, but at least you have to go and fetch your money on a monthly basis. This you can claim at any time, and you can either constantly compound without having to look for different properties to go into. There's a lot of weird benefits to this, and that's why I do think blockchain is going to revolutionize assets compared to in real life, because the ability that we have to integrate technology with assets is ultimately what I believe going to improve assets, because this is the same thing if you think of the wheel. The wheel is a great invention, but when you put air and rubber around it, it's 10 times better. Well, blockchain could be the air and rubber to assets in the real world. Or for an example, with integrating technology with old good business models, you have taxis. And as soon as apps came out, Uber put technology around an already amazing idea and pretty much superseded a great business model of taxis. Why? Because technology was put in place. Well, why wouldn't technology make assets better? So I think it's going to. I think we're still in that evolutionary phase. But when you look at the basics of what makes assets valuable, blockchain improves on every single one of these things. They appreciate more. No middleman. You can literally modify the code or design the code to make the supply ever decreasing. And you can now, as pTGC and UFO has discovered, you can actually mechanically increase demand. And everyone knows if you can control supply and demand, you can technically control the price of any product. And we don't have complete control of the supply and demand. I can't wake up tomorrow and say, remove half the supply, right? But we do control supply in a way to where mechanically or code-wise, we make it to where it's ever decreasing, making it to where there's always less the next day. And we can't have ever amounts of demand. It's not like I can wake up tomorrow and say, I want hundreds of millions of dollars to get injected into the system. But what we can do is we can find ways to mechanically enhance it, making it to where there is a constant demand there no matter what. And that gives us the ability to alter the price of the asset, which again has not really been a reality until technology hit real assets.
Man, I just felt like I just went to Princeton and sat down for 5 minutes and had a little soundbite on the course, man.
Agol, I think that's your name. Sorry if I mispronounced it. Do you have a question?
Good evening, everyone. It's evening in Africa. Actually, I'm really delighted to be in this space because I'm one of the early pTGC holder. Actually, I sniped pTGC when it was 5 zeros. And I've been the pTGC influencer in our community, been telling my fellow Hexagon to buy pTGC, and they are a bit skeptical. And I will explain why. Most of my friends are a bit skeptical within PLS ecosystem. Well, I just want to address serious issue facing PLS ecosystem. We are lacking a proper block explorer. Like you see, Solana right now, they've partnered with Bubble Map. They've partnered with so many tools that can help investors to navigate through the PLS ecosystem. So when I approached my friends about pTGC, and now here it was a very tough discussion because now some of the feedbacks I was receiving is like, how do we know the snipers, the calls, how much have they made within pTGC? And I've been telling them that pTGCs are, number one, pTGC got a very strong community and it is very stable. Actually, it is one of the coins in PLS ecosystem that have been consistent for the past 2 years now, right? If I'm not wrong. Just address the PLX Explorer issue. Actually, that is one of the challenges I'm facing. Onboarding my fellow Kenyan hexagons to the project like pTGC. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't really have a solution to that, right? But what I can say is I don't think everything in this city is completely built out yet, right? And in a city that isn't completely built out yet, there is opportunity. So you 100%, let's say if you rewind, I live in the United States, if you rewind 100 years, right? you could look at a country that isn't as developed, and you 100% can move to a city that is already thriving and completely built out. You're going to pay a lot more for that property in that already thriving city. But what you can do in a completely fresh landscape is you could look at some of the more basics, right? The fact that does this land that doesn't have a built out city yet have ocean views and great weather and good resources, good dirt? And does it have the right foundation to build a thriving city? And if you kind of check those boxes, which I believe PulseChain is, I think the foundation is there to build a thriving city. It becomes the point of opportunity. The ability to build the city from the ground up with a community of people who see different value in different things, right? Like not every PulseChain person has the exact same direction that they're working towards. Everyone's working in different directions as onboarding and what buildings they find important and what buildings they want to put value in. But the one thing we do have in common is we believe the foundation that we have here is eventually going to be a thriving city that attracts tons and tons of users. No, we don't have the libraries built and the theaters built and this built and that built as of right now. But what I think that means is opportunity. That means that people are getting extremely discounted prices on beachfront properties that will one day possibly be worth X folds of value. So yeah, there is more risk there, right? The fact of the city never gets finished, it never gets built. But again, you have to look at it in a zoomed out way. Like, do I believe this community is strong? Do I think they're going to finish their city? And do I believe in the foundation that's already put here is my opinion on it. I think one day we will have a better block explorer. The fact that we don't have it now ultimately means lack or opportunity because some users aren't here yet because there isn't a good one.
Yeah, I just say this too, man. The question that your people are putting forth, or the apprehensiveness, does it really have to do with whether or not they believe PulseChain as a worldwide blockchain isn't legitimate? I highly doubt that, right? I highly doubt that they believe that PulseChain isn't legitimate, that it's not built very robustly, that it's not proven to be a flawlessly operating EVM kind of next-gen version of Ethereum, fully decentralized nodes, IPFS, nothing sitting on AWS servers. So the blockchain itself and the technology that runs it, it's standardized EVM with some upgrades, and it's about to get the next Ethereum upgrade as well, right? So then you have to ask yourself the question, because you said my guys are looking at pTGC and they're skeptical, and then you throw in the term the block explorer. Okay, well, in reality, the only thing that you really need to look at if you're looking at taking a position in pTGC is how does pTGC work? Okay. Has it proven to do what it says it does? And if those two things are there, can I go to the block explorer and can I see that the liquidity is burned like they say it is? And if it is, that shows that these guys themselves believe in this blockchain, because why in the hell would you burn millions of dollars onto a chain if you didn't, right? So those core three things, I think you really just have to ask yourself and answer yourself that question. Do I think PulseChain is a real blockchain? Do I think it's going anywhere? Is it robust enough? Yes, the block explorer sucks. Currently, there's like 3 or 4 in development that I know of. There's a new one coming out that's in development. Those are tools that allow you to see transactions on a blockchain. Now, we can show you where all the dead addresses are for the PLP tokens with pTGC, right? So you can see that this is all burnt liquidity. It's all unruggable liquidity. It's protocol owned. The token holders own it. It's on the chain. At that last peak, pTGC in PulseX owned almost 20% of the liquidity in the PulseX DEX itself. So be skeptical, but know that you can easily get those fundamental core questions answered very quickly. And if you have more skepticism on top of those things, write them down and come in. We'd be more than happy to field those for you. But I feel like the reason why pTGC is doing so well is because for the large majority of people that can't operate on the chain, just standard operation on the chain, they can see those verified contracts. They can see everything's renounced. Everything's working perfectly. The system does exactly what it does. It's done it for 19 months, and it's protocol owned and burned liquidity. So those are the main things, right? On top of that, what else is there to be skeptical about is really the question.
Okay, thank you for clarification. And it's unfortunate I didn't highlight some key points I wanted to put out. The reason why some of my friends are a bit skeptical about pTGC, you see, like right now what is happening in Sol Chain, whereby the entire chain have partnered with the likes of Bubble Map, Ragchecker, so many tools, So when you tell someone the narrative behind pTGC, they're telling you the tokenomics is very good. However, we need to verify whatever I'm trying to tell them. So the difficult part is they are not in a position to verify my narrative. That is where there is a bit misunderstanding.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Write down the things that you need, that you believe you would need to have down on paper to deliver them. What do you need to, in quotes, verify? Feel free to DM me. I'll be more than happy to get that information to you.
All right, thank you, brother. I will DM you.
Just literally give me the bullet points. I'll put in the time to get it over to your guys, and it shouldn't be that much. I mean, what needs to be verified truly isn't that much, but I'd be more than happy to get those transaction IDs over to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and just so you know, just speaking just in a general level, if you spend time on PulseChain, if you're within the PulseChain community, I don't know how deep you go with just spending time with the community. I think that most people on PulseChain now know that pTGC has earned its place within the community as a respected higher level protocol on PulseChain. There is no question that that's the case at this point. Like I said, the protocol, I think at one point had almost 20% of the entire LP of PulseX, and it only does what it does. It's a smart contract that's designed very similar to Hex in terms of its security. Its tokenomics and mechanics, you can just go straight through the white paper and get that information. And then, the liquidity, the capital, everything, it's all burned, it's all there. And even with the current block explorer we have, it's not hard to verify those transactions. What happened to Prairie? Did you have anything else, Prairie?
I'm still here. We had lots of conversation in the previous 2 hours, but okay. I'm still here. How you doing?
Oh, I'm good. I just, I didn't know how much longer Zen wanted to go. How much longer you want to go, Zen?
I can probably keep going for another 15, 30 minutes if the conversation's there. If anyone who's listening has any questions, comments, or things they want to bring up, feel free to. But yeah, I probably have another 15, 30 minutes max.
Mm-hmm.
If not, we've been going for 2 hours, 15 minutes. I'm also fine closing it down. I think it's been a great space. We've covered a lot of information. We went over a lot of the last month's stats from the previous month of March, which there was a lot of great information in there, Mando, which was super fun to go over. But yeah, I would like pretty much, if we are to keep going, it to just be conversations with the community. If anyone has anything want to bring up, feel free to.
Yeah, hindsight's 2020 with PulseChain price, man. Because if you think about, and this will make your eyes roll, but if you think about the whole shakeout the weak hands narrative, should have thought that he was talking about the whales, because those are the only guys that really matter, right? How many whales can I shake out? But you're not shaking them out until you get them out of profit. So when I sit here and I think about where the price of PulseChain is now, and what that means to shake out the actual people who can determine price, it's interesting that it's down here in this range.
I think there's a difference between shakeout and also buyout, right? Like, it could just be a prolonged thing, to buy them out, even if it's not at lower levels, right? Like, right now we're at lower levels to pretty much where no one's in profit unless you bought the absolute bottom. But if we're looking at sacrificing, it's, 30% down. So that would definitely shake them out at a loss. But I think also part of it is just buy them out at, even a little bit higher price is not a big deal. But you do make it very hard to go to do 100x if you have a wall of sellers at a 10x from here, right? Like a very large wall. So, that's probably part of the plan to an extent. If you see a large wall at 10x and you want to go 100x, you possibly sit longer at the lower levels, see if they have short-term mindset. And obviously, if they're willing to wait longer than you, there's nothing you can do. But I'm sure that's partially part of the strategy to an extent.
Yeah, I'll just say this too. I just said it a little bit earlier ago, but the concept of having kind of an auto compounding a token that's kind of an auto compounding token, just holding it, is very interesting. Because when you take a position in something and you're generating yield, right? You have to put what you're generating back in to compound it. Right, that's how you actually compound it. You just keep taking the yield and you put it back in and you put it back in and you're compounding the yield. But with a token like pTGC, it's just interesting because you hold the token, and because there's less tokens tomorrow than there are today, you're getting more yield. And that's before you even receive the yield if you wanted to compound it in. So the fact that it's a hyper deflationary protocol, Zen, that allows you to literally, you can sell your yield all year as long as you didn't sell your principal. You technically have a higher percentage of the yield pool than you did when you started. When you think about it like that, it's just interesting. It's an actual double whammy. It's an auto compounding yield token plus the yield, right? And I still don't think that it's like you said, like you're building in a city before most of it's built out. And we've seen little snippets of how the system can work in higher velocity settings. It's just going to be very interesting to watch the next cycle up with the token supplies the way that they are now, with the distribution the way that it is now.
Yeah, well, it's, you have to kind of look at it like this stuff has been happening for forever, right? At one point, the East Coast was completely built out and the West Coast wasn't. Someone made the decision like, hey, I see the foundation over there. I see the weather. I see the ocean. I see the gold. I see the, the good land for growing crops. Like they saw the potential in it, but that doesn't mean they were able to just move over here and the city was just thriving and everything was glorious from day one. It took a community starting, and the community started small and it slowly gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But as time goes on, think about the people who were able to come to the thriving city before it was the thriving city and scoop up all the land and build all the buildings. I kind of have a family friend who is not the beginning stages of California, but their family owns a lot of the property throughout California. They own tons of businesses. They own tons of buildings on all the main streets, and they bought this stuff hundreds of years ago, like their great grandpa. They've never let them go. Well, these are just passive income streams for them forever, and they own all of these major buildings. But the thing is these cities weren't what they are today 100 years ago when their grandparents bought that land and built those buildings. They took a guess on what the property actually was. They looked at the environment around them. They looked at, hey, this is beachfront property. Hey, this is next to major freeways. Hey, this is great land for community. This is great land for farming. I believe people will settle here. And then they started building, because if you want people to settle there, you have to give them the necessities and the things that they need to thrive. Like Egel was kind of saying, like it's hard, to get people to thrive when you don't have the libraries and this build and that build. Like it's hard to get users in. But what that equals is opportunity for the users who are ready to build and be there for the city that's not established completely yet, but they can see that it's working on getting there, right? And if you ever kind of look back in history, what a beachfront property went for in, let's say, California 100 years ago compared to what it's going for today, almost seems unthinkable. And you start asking yourself, well, why didn't anyone just buy that property? Right? It seems so
and Zen, I want to say this too, because a lot of people don't understand this. It costs a lot of money to operate a pulse chain, right? It's easy to spin up a shit. Trust me, it's easy to spin up a blockchain. It's not easy to spin up a real blockchain, right? And PulseChain is a real blockchain. The infrastructure underneath of what's called PulseChain is a very robust network, and that's really the core, right? It's understanding the amount of money, even the lawsuit, millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars in representation to properly represent what PulseChain is, how it works, how it operates, why it's not a security. That's all part of it, right? So I think that when you're looking at asking yourself the question, where are you going to build? There's people coming in here right now and they're locking their tokens out 10 years. So there are legitimate people in the space that believe at least that this space is going to thrive for the next 10 years, right? That's kind of where everything is going. And I do see this, man. And I'll just say it like this. Right now, Richard and PulseChain, it's in that moment where it's just before the SEC case gets massively closed. right? Gets finalized, and that's wash your hands of it. But do we not believe that? And so we're in this environment where it's like, oh, we're hated and all this stuff. But in reality, that can literally turn around overnight with a few things that happen. And now you're on a blockchain that's not a SUI, right? Or that's not, something else that's already done. Like, for example, SUI, like the low for SUI was like 40 cents and it went up to like $5, right? So it's like 5x, 6x, something like that. You're not seeing these massive X multipliers on these other chains, these EVM chains. But I do think that the infrastructure for PulseChain and what it is and the real amount of economic energy that's gone into building it and constructing it, people need to understand that. Like, it's not just some cheap slap on blockchain, right? It is fully upgradable with ETH, and the foundation is very strong, to be a competitor in certain markets over the next 10 years, and it's fully upgradable. That's the thing I like about it too. So yeah, it's just a thought in terms of where we're at. And I think that because, like, right now, there could be a time in the future where we look back and say, man, you remember when they used to just hate RH like so bad? And now it's just like, it was just something in the past, right? They used to hate him so much, or there was so many roadblocks, but now they're all gone because they've all been developed out through other projects or engineers or whatever else. So it'll be interesting to see it.
Yeah, I on that idea, I wanted to bring up two things that you reminded me of when you were talking. One, we're kind of talking about the future, right? That we're building in this foundation that we believe there's value in, like we believe this is great, and we're working on the infrastructure. pTGC and UFO are working on the infrastructure of this city. But not everyone needs to work on the infrastructure, right? These are only certain people. A lot of people can just move there and scoop up really, really cheap houses or property and just start living there, right? Just make that their home, and they utilize the infrastructure that's getting built there by other people. This is most people. But by being there in the city and bringing your value to this thriving city, being economic energy, is also the most important thing as well, right? These no stores function without people actually being there within those cities. But more importantly, I also wanted to bring up two other things. The fact that pTGC and UFO has been spending the last year and a half scooping up all the beachfront property. And when I say beachfront property, I'm talking about RH tickers. We've been scooping up RH tickers just constantly and LPing and LPing and LPing. And what we're technically making this property is, we're not ever going to, for the most part, a lot of this LP is burnt. We can't even ever sell this property, even if it hits dollar amounts that become nice. It's literally just forced into being rentals for the rest of the existence of ever, as far as PulseChain ever exists. And that's just so crazy to kind of like, I know I'm twisting the words a little bit, but when you relate what that is to the real world, it kind of shows you how massive pTGC and UFO could become. We pretty much have burnt these liquidities, saying we will never sell these RH tickers. The only way they can ever be accessed is technically by a pTGC holder accessing those funds, but we cannot ever sell them on you. We have bought RH tickers. We have bought this beachfront property, and this is now rentals for our system to earn passive yield off of forever. And as the properties become worth more, the monthly income getting raked in becomes more. It works in the same exact way, just with no maintenance, no overhead, no corrosion, everything that comes with property that kind of sucks, collecting funds, etc. It's literally operating off blockchain, which I was previously talking earlier, literally is going to create better assets because of technology. This is the future. And then I also wanted to, real quick before I lose it, we're talking about one of the reasons why we believe PulseChain could be one of those cities that does turn to thrive. I feel like people tend to forget about the basis of what RH has built on top of. The basic idea of delayed gratification, where there's a massive community that has already locked out their tokens 15 years. That's 10 more years from now. So we're not even only looking at the pTGC holders who are forced into, or they're not forced, they could close their stake and take a 30% hit. But there's pTGC holders willing to wait 10 years to see this city develop. But there's also the basic foundation of the PulseChain community, which is the Hex community, that is out 15 years, 10 years still today if they locked within the first year. So we have so much of our community which is saying, I'm not going anywhere. I'm letting this story play out. And that's what I think is very, very unique about the foundation of the PulseChain blockchain compared to other blockchains, is there's no group of people that have literally put their money where their mouth is and said, I'm willing to wait the 15 years to finish the story, because the story is not over. We don't know how it ends, right? That's the question. But there is literally actions on the blockchain confirming that there is a group of people that will be here 15 years from now.
Yeah, man. And here's the interesting thing. We hit a 1-to-1 against PulseChain, against this value proposition called PulseChain. And it took hundreds of X's to get there, right? And that's an all-time high when we hit a 1-to-1 against PulseChain. And then we went to a 22-to-1 against PulseChain. And then Armageddon hits on PulseChain. And during Armageddon, we got to an 8.59 to 1 against PulseChain. And it wouldn't go lower than that. So when you're looking at the system and its performance over time, and you're looking at the fact that the protocol was doing this since day one, and the fact that we're at new all-time lows now, and the system is still doing what it's doing, but the floor is now at basically 9-10 to 1 against PulseChain. It's the system mathematically is telling us something, right?
I don't think you're here for this, Mando, so I'm going to just give you a recap, some data that we're looking at earlier. I think July PulseChain was higher than it is today, but it was hitting its all-time lows. And for UFO, the average volume for the month daily was $30,000. And last month, where PulseChain was still close to these lows, the average was $300,000. So even though PulseChain round tripped to the same exact numbers, the volume of UFO 10x'd.
Yeah. And not only did it 10x, it completely bottomed out a almost 9x against PulseChain. It bottomed out at a 9x over PulseChain. These are just undeniable numbers you're looking at this point, right? So when we're talking about the X multiplier on the potential return, the potential X, it's just astronomical to me, because you guys see the amount of economic energy it'll take to actually, make the mean of Richard's coins do a very solid X for its holders this cycle. It's just not a lot of users that need to come over the bridge. It's not a lot of capital, compared to the general market. So the fact that you're seeing that kind of performance with an atomic bomb happening on PulseChain and it holding that kind of a floor, the math is there. It's undeniably a strong. pTGC basically has come out of that looking like the Incredible Hulk, and that's before you even talk about everything that it's weathered up to this point, right? Which, that's a whole nother topic. But that's all I got, man.
Yeah, me too. Egel, feel free to shoot your last question. I'm going to be shutting it down after this. If anyone has any last comments or questions, feel free to come up real quick and raise your hand as well. If not, I'll close it down after this question.
Okay, mine is not a question per se, but just a concern. You know, some of us, like African community, Hex, PLS community, you know, started with Richard Hart when he launched Hex. And we've been through the journey from PLS to PLX up to where we are right now. And we are not giving up. And you see, like where I am from, we are not privileged to have material to spread the gospel. But the few we are trying to onboard into the ecosystem, we are trying to explain to them that PLS is another Bitcoin moment. You know, Bitcoin launched when I was a teenager. I guess I was around 13 years old or something. So, and I've been telling my community that PLS is another Bitcoin moment. And now, here is the concern, a very serious concern. You know, we are trying to build a community, and in blockchain, community is part of utility, right? And I was not happy the other day when Party P and Somi were fighting over PDI. You know, they even went ahead to block each other, throwing words that are not pleasant. So my friends were asking, what kind of community is this that are just dissing out each other? Allow me to finish up. And I just want to urge everyone that we don't need all these hullabaloos within ecosystem. I mean, this is a very vital community, and we need to build it. We just need to love each other. Like I sniped pTGC when it was 5 zeros, and I've never regretted. And I feel when a project is having some hiccup, there is a way of approaching such issues like the one that happened to PDI. Like fighting each other is not good. It is affecting the community. In fact, some of my friends who have little knowledge on blockchain, I mean, it was a very rough discussion trying to explain to them what is happening in the ecosystem. We just need to love each other. We just need to support the projects within PLS ecosystem. We need to show the world that PLS is a sleeping giant. Thank you.
Egel, I wanted to remind you, and you can remind your community of this as well. A lot of people look at Bitcoin and don't necessarily think about this, but there has been endless amounts of hiccups in the growth of Bitcoin, and there has been constant fighting by believers of Bitcoin. There is still
100%.
fighting within that community today. So don't think that just because of where the price of Bitcoin is today doesn't mean that there hasn't been hiccups, issues, and infighting between that community. There is tons of hiccups, tons of fighting, and infighting within that community.
And hard forks.
Yeah. So don't forget to remind them that there is a process to success, and success usually does not come without at least some little failures, right? Like obviously a huge failure could be detrimental, but I don't think anything's perfect. I don't think any story doesn't get told without a few defeats, and everything I think actually feels pretty similar between the PulseChain community and Bitcoin community. People with different visions, different thoughts, different thinking processes. Some people benevolent, some people users. Also, Bitcoin has had tons of issues with their code. So I would just suggest remind them of the actual past of Bitcoin, because what I'm guessing at is they just don't actually realize the amount of FUD, the amount of hurdles, the amount of everything that Bitcoin actually had to get through to get to where it was today.
Yeah, it's impossible. It's impossible to have a network of people all around the world, and all of those people are on the same, they're building on the same thing, right? Anybody can build, on the ground of your city. It's impossible in an environment like that where it's just open source and anybody can come in and move into your area, and you're not going to have infighting, and you're not going to have discourse, and you're not going to have it's literally like a family or like a city. You're always going to have people that are thieves. You're always going to have people that are burglars. You're always going to have people that are great people, but there's no way that you can monitor or prevent the kind of discourse that we've witnessed, for example, like with Somi and PDI and people who were for it and against it and whatever. There's no way to stop that. So it always goes back to, the fundamental of, do you really know what the city is? It's not so much listening to the fighting over there on that part of the city for a week, as much as it is the zooming out.
Yeah. Hey, guys, I am running out of time, so I'm going to be shutting it down. I do appreciate everyone coming up. Egil, thank you for bringing those questions. I will say you have a lot of concerns for someone who sniped pTGC very early. I think you should look at what you have and be appreciative, and just really look at some of the more fundamentals of what PulseChain is. You sound very concerned about PulseChain at the moment, which I completely understand. PulseChain is obviously hitting lower lows. But I do think there's a lot of positive things that we have over here with PulseChain. And if we talk about those positive things more than the negative things, most likely more people are going to come to our city. All right, guys. Banana, thanks for co-hosting with me.
Absolutely. Thanks for hosting, Zen. We always appreciate you showing up.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I'll talk to you guys later.
All right. Have a good weekend, everybody.
All right. Bye.
That's all, folks. Worked good, didn't it? There's some good stuff in there. Some good stuff. I probably gonna record a little video of the monthly data, post it on my channel. I'll do that next week. Yeah. And there's some Saturday morning spaces are my favorite. Well, guys, have a good weekend. I'll be doing an AMA tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific. If you guys want to jump in, you got somebody that's new. If you have a buddy that's new, send them over. They can ask any questions that they want. Live, I'll demonstrate the DApp and all that good stuff about pTGC and UFO. So jump in if you want to tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific. And we'll see you on Spaces again on Monday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific. All right. Prairie Banana, over and out.